going to grab a chair, if you don't mind.
No problem, Jack.
Excuse me. I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can. As you know, I was here back in December with last year's efforts, but there's a couple of fundamental issues here. So if you're going to move forward with amendments, perhaps you can take some of my brief comments into account, and then I can share them with the rest of the council. My understanding is that if the amendments are substantive, and this would be a question for the township attorney, but if they are substantive, the ordinance may actually need to be reintroduced completely on first reading. You know, you may agree or disagree with me on that, but if there are major changes, I don't think you can move forward on second reading with amendments. You have to start all over again. Am I right, gentlemen?
If it's substantially amended this evening, the amendments this evening will be the first reading. The next meeting will be the second reading.
All right, so
at which time it can be amended again.
Okay, thank you. All right. I was amused by the opening whereas clause. The original whereas clause said the purpose of the ordinance was to permit, facilitate, and promote short-term rentals, etc. in the town. This ordinance says it seeks to regulate, completely different from a philosophical point of view. What I think this ordinance should be characterized as is an ordinance to restrict, to limit short-term rentals in the town. Because in effect, that's what it does. You have an unregulated free market going on right now, and the town will interject itself into this market from a regulatory point of view. Now, what's curious is that in the entire political history for the last 120 years, I doubt if anybody would agree that government regulation promotes economic activity. The argument always is counter. Free the market from government regulation and let the economic activity expand. That's always the philosophical argument. So if you analyze the first paragraph, it's incompatible. Regulation does not promote economic activity. I would prefer that the council just call it what it is. It wants to limit, the purpose of the ordinance is to limit, restrict, control short-term rentals. That's what this is about. It's also about, so to speak, balancing, evening the playing field between those currently regulated short-term rentals, condos, hotels, and on and on and on, which are paying sales tax, collecting sales tax, and paying the hotel tax, and this unregulated marketplace that's not collecting sales tax and it's not remitting hotel tax to the town. So there's a driver there that I think really does need to be reconciled within the document. I also attended the land use board when the council, last year the council referred this ordinance to the land use board. My understanding is from that meeting and confirmed subsequently is that the land use board returned the ordinance to the council without any comment. And that troubled me severely because to legitimize short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods, which generally are restricted to single-family residential purposes only, it seemed to me that that was the proper place for the land use board to roll up its sleeves and try to figure out exactly where we want these things unfettered, where we want them restricted, and where we want them prevented. No comment came back from the land use board. So I'm going to ask the council, whatever the amendments ultimately become, to send it back to the land use board again and ask them to roll up their sleeves and deal with it. There's comments in here about the police department, excessive noise, on-street parking, and diminished public safety. I don't know, has the council received any reports from the police department as to its experiences in the last 6 months, last 18 months, with short-term rentals and complaints from neighbors, et cetera? Have you?
We're not for discussion, Jack. We're taking down your comments.
Okay.
You know I take it all the time. I'm writing down.
Okay, all right. But I think that's important to have that type of report before the council. The section that says that whereas it's in the public interest that short-term rentals be regulated, I really do think that what you want to do is limit them. You've heard comments from various people throughout the Vernon community tonight. You know I work in one of those communities. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and no one else. But why don't we just agree that I'm pretty familiar with some of the issues that have arisen. There's the intended purpose of the chapter, in addition to this balancing the rights of people who buy so that they can have short-term rentals, is to preserve and protect the long-term housing market stock of Vernon Township. I don't even know what that means. I have no idea how the government can even do anything along those lines. It just seems to be completely unnecessary. It refers to, twice or three times in the document, it refers to applicable state statutes, but makes no references to what they are. So any reader of this, any owner who wishes to comply and understand all that they're exposed with to short-term rentals, the references to the applicable state statutes should be here. There's a comment in here that, which is new, that the short-term rental has to conduct a water test. Makes sense, right? Those water tests are conducted by hotels, right? By any public water supply system, whether it's Suez/United Water, and on and on. So I'm not suggesting that that's not a proper approach, but the language says in G4 on page 8, for which testing of the water is not required. Now, that needs to be teased out, because in New Jersey, the Private Well Testing Act is very clear. If you're going to buy or sell something, you're required to get a water test. So in every property that's going to be bought or sold, a water test is required. So in this case, the ordinance is defective in that it says you only have to do a water test when one's not required. So I think that needs to be looked at again. There's a limitation if you have to be 21 years old to rent, right? You could be driving a Humvee in Iraq at 18. I just don't understand where that restriction comes from. In New Jersey, adults are 18. So I'd like the council to recognize that I think that's troublesome. The responsibility, as another commenter mentioned, that occupants are supposed to be filing all of this information with the town. Well, it seems to me that that burden, if that's what you want to see, ought to be imposed on the owner, not the people who are renting. The owner should do that. The water test should be submitted as part of the permit application, or else you're chasing your tail afterwards. If you want a short-term rental permit, get the water test done and submit it. Those water tests should also be posted in the short-term rental unit. People should know when they walk in the door, in addition to who's in charge, who the owner is, what the police telephone number is, on and on. There's language in here that relates to bedrooms. And I believe it's 2 persons per bedroom plus 2. So a 3-bedroom place can have 8 occupants. But on page 7, item 7, the number and location of all parking spaces available to the STR, short-term rental. I don't know what that means, available. Either they have parking spaces on site in the garage, and in the garage if one's there, plus and/or plus, there may be, let's say in the condos, parking available in the parking lots. But I do think short-term rentals should be very strict on prohibiting on-street parking. Because if there's one thing that's going to impact neighborhoods, that's one of them, on-street parking. The ordinance requires the owner to use his or her best efforts to assure that the use of the SDR will not disrupt the neighborhood. I don't know what best efforts mean. You know, that's in the eye of the beholder. So it seems to be something that ought to be just excised out or defined much more. So I'm going to leave it like with the last comment, and I said this in December. I still do not understand the insurance requirement. I do not understand how the township wants to interject itself into the affairs of a homeowner and establish a minimum insurance level in that dwelling in order for short-term rental to occur. If you want to restrict it, if you want to kill it, make it $1 million, make it $5 million. But I just don't think it's the township's business to be involved in determining what a homeowner's insurance, what adequate insurance coverage is. It's not asked at hotels. It's not asked. I mean, I don't know if the township has a record of what the Appalachian Motel's insurance coverage is, but if you're concerned about folks, then that ought to be a concern across the board, and not just in the short-term rental. So, in closing, what I'd like to say is that it's very hard to deal with issues like this when it's introduced on first reading. I mean, the council president and I had the discussion. He's been very gracious, trying to share with me everything he could as soon as he could, and I thank him for that. But I think there's a process that ought to occur before something is introduced on first reading. I think there ought to be a public comment period. Now, I know procedurally how difficult that is. And it's probably on a technical basis. If it's not before the council, it's not real. Council members work hard on developing ordinances, putting their thoughts together. So it may not be final, that's, of course, but at some point, citizen input before it makes it to first reading may avoid a lot of this 20 months that you've been chasing this and help the process of government be a little bit more effective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I saw a lot of people. My name is Sean Clarkin. I live in Vernon, New Jersey. I saw a lot of notes being taken, and you were gracious enough to give Jack far more than the 3 minutes limit for public input. So, you know, and Jack deserves it. He's got a lot of experience. But just in case you don't know, what Jack just gave you was a workshop. And these kind of workshops is going to make your job a lot easier. So share with the public, let the public share with you, and get Vernon on track for success, okay? We need more workshops, but they shouldn't happen here. They should be scheduled, and the doors should be open for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Mike Maniscalco, Highland Lakes. Spoke to you before, but Jack brought up some good points. He pointed out the ambiguity of some of the verbiage in those documents he read in that resolution or ordinance that you folks are proposing. Maybe a solution is, I've heard the word limiting and regulating pushed around. A very finite, this is a suggestion, a very finite suggestion may be to go by the rating of the septic system in the house. Each septic system, I have one. I have a brand new one, so I'm very versed on septic systems. They're rated per bedroom. If it's a 2-bedroom septic, you have a 2-bedroom house. You can have 4 people. Okay, there you go. Plus, you want to throw in the plus 2, okay, bring your kids. That's okay also. But we have, again, I'll use the property next door to my right as an example. I was in that house. I know what it looks like. It's a 1-bedroom house with a sort of a den and a loft, and I could be mistaken, but I don't think you could stand in the loft. And they are calling it a 3-bedroom house because they put 2 single mattresses in that loft you got to climb up a ladder and crawl into. And I don't know what the septic is rated at. I'm just putting it out there as a suggestion. That's a very fine-out way to do it. A septic system has a rating. You cannot exceed that rating. Period. Done.
Thank you. Anyone else? You sure? Want to hear it? Okay.
Twisted my arm.
Okay. Come on up. That wasn't hard to do, was it?
No, thank you. Good evening, Doreen Edwards, Highland Lakes, and I speak loud, so I don't even need the mic. Question for you. I'm just curious. When you do these resolutions, does the attorney review them for legality issues? Because it was brought up, Jack McLaughlin said something about not being able to rent unless you're 21 and over, and then in the state of New Jersey, they talk about 18. So I'm just concerned that as a taxpayer, we're not being representative in the legality part of issues that come up.
We're not answering questions, you know that, but I will answer them when we have a workshop, if we choose to do so,
Great. I
or
hope you
when we go for adoption. I will
Okay.
answer your questions there.
Okay. Well, I hope the attorney, because why else do we have an attorney, right? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Doreen. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for all your comments, by the way. Seeing no more members of the public wishing to come forward, may I have a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 20-04?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to table this and have a workshop.
Second.
Can we have a roll call for that?
Vice President Allberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel? I don't know if he's there anymore.
Bueller.
Right. Council President Shortway?
Yes. Table it.
Motion carries.
So be it. We'll schedule it. We'll look at the schedules where we can get the vast majority. Mayor, that you're available, and whoever else you want here. Thank you.
I have another question about this. Actually, on page 8, it says, if STR permit is denied, the applicant shall have 10 business days to appeal in writing to the Township Business Administrator. I believe that that should say mayor or his or her designee. I don't think that it should just be left in the hands of the business administrator. That's how it's normally written. That's how everything is normally written, that it goes to the mayor or designee. So I would like to see that change also, or at least addressed.
Duly noted. It'll be in the minutes, too.
And I have a couple comments because Mr. Stassi brought up about hiring, like security. I mean, when you're collecting money for this tax, now we're looking at, because administration was on board with hiring, with actually creating a position to monitor these in the building to try to figure out if the town was, if all the ones that they were finding online were in fact registered. So, if they do something like that, if you have to hire somebody now for security, I mean, now you start to figure out how much money are you bringing in versus how much money are you paying out in employees. And then also, like the homeowner association, I'm not sure. I think Highland Lakes might be charging a fee right now if they register. So I'm not sure, but
Can we address this during the work session?
Yeah, let's.
yeah, no, I'm just
that's
mentioning
okay.
that because I had these notes written. I think that's, what else? Oh, and just one other thing I wanted to bring up is that probably over 10 years ago, there was a proposal to open up a bed and breakfast in the Summit. That's a development off of 565. There was a huge house there, and the owner wanted to run a bed and breakfast, so he would have lived there. There was a lot of public outcry. As a matter of fact, there was an ordinance introduced, and it was prohibiting bed and breakfast in residential areas. It passed on the first reading, and then it failed, although the owner just, decided not to do it. So there was an instance here in town where actually the owner was going to be living in the home, and the residents were against it, and it's because it was near her house. So just wanted to note that, because last year I also provided that ordinance to the council so they could see what has happened in the past with something like that. That's all I have.
Okay. Ordinance 20-05, an ordinance of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 509 of the Municipal Code of the Township of Vernon entitled Taxation to include transient accommodations. This ordinance amends Chapter 509 of the Township Code entitled Taxation to include transient accommodations. May I have a motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 20-05?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who would like to come up to the podium this time? Be my guest. Peg DeStassi.
You know that I'm going to say something. I think it should be tabled, because how can you vote on that if we didn't vote on the even doing the short-term rentals? So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no members of the public wishing to come forward, may I have a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 20-05?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to table it.
The only thing I ask, this sets up the taxation part of it, not the regulation part of it. And it's going to take at least 90 days for the state to do it, plus 20 days of estoppel. So you're looking at over 110 days before the township could collect any tax.
And what if it never gets adopted? So then you have something on the
I
books.
know Jersey City didn't have regulations correct, and they're still collecting the taxes.
What this ordinance does, it allows the municipality to collect the hotel occupancy tax for short-term rentals. Whether or not the municipality adopts an ordinance regulating how short-term rentals are conducted is a separate and distinct issue. This allows the town to collect revenue from short-term rentals.
So Airbnb would be required after, I think it's a 20-day estoppel, and I think it takes 90 days to the state, would have to start mailing us the check that they collect.
Airbnb, VBRO, and any other
All those
entity.
transients.
Yeah. How much is that tax? Tax, I believe, is 3%.
3%. May I have a motion?
For introduction?
Yes.
No, this is
No,
not-
this is for adoption.
Adoption. Motion.
Second? I second it. Let's go roll call.
Vice President Wahlberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
No.
Council President
Yes.
Shortway.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Mayor, you're up on deck. Mayor's report.
No. Public
Is it-
comments.
Oh, public comments. I'm sorry. Okay, public comments. Please note, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. May I have a motion to open up public
Motion.
comments?
Motion.
Second? Jeannie, a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Please step up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I've heard a lot of people tonight speaking about public safety, and I feel like that's a good segue to what I want to speak about. So, hello, honorable representatives of Vernon. I'd like to submit a resolution for Second Amendment rights.
Wait, can I please have your name and
Oh,
area of town?
sorry, I've never done this before.
That's okay. Take your
Jessica
time.
Benedetto, Barry Lakes. Yeah,
Go
okay.
ahead.
I would like to submit a resolution for Second Amendment rights. As a citizen of Vernon and a law-abiding firearms owner, I am of the opinion the current administration in Trenton has infringed on my rights. The resolution's intent is to send a message to Trenton that law-abiding firearms owners in New Jersey are under constitutional attack. Furthermore, many feel the firearms legislation passed in Trenton only burdens our Second Amendment rights. Once one has proven to be a law-abiding citizen of New Jersey by exemption of the firearms purchaser ID card, they have fulfilled the state's burden of proof. Our current permitting system was founded in 1966 and intended to separate the fit from the unfit, law-abiding from criminal. No criminal follows any law. We, the law-abiding, are now under duress from our own state government and criminals. I would ask you, our representatives, to consider this resolution for vote. I have attached a copy of the resolution. In no way does this resolution make anyone immune from past or present firearms laws. See Section E. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. Can I bring this up?
Yes, please do. If you can give it to the clerk, that way she'll make sure all 5 of us receive a copy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next. Thank you. Yes, Robert?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Kirschmer. I've been a resident in Vernon since 1976. I'm a retired teacher, teaching 40 years. I was the Vernon Citizen of the Year and the Vernon Teacher of the Year. I'm a sportsman. I'm a hunter. I belong to Cherry Ridge Gun Club. I am not a member of the NRA. And I am here tonight to speak to the council to recommend to them to never even consider a Second Amendment sanctuary city resolution. When I did a little research and I looked up the word sanctuary, it says a place of safety, a place of refuge. And I know the Second Amendment, and I support it wholeheartedly. However, let me read to you a Second Amendment resolution from Hamburg, our neighbor to the west. The Borough of Hamburg opposes gun control, gun safety legislation, or red flag laws, state, federal, or local. Ladies and gentlemen, our job here is to have a safe community. Do we want a safe community for our guns or for our residents? We want a safe community. You are right, both, but our residents must take preference. Why would we not? With all the public land in Vernon, with all the hunting that we all do, with all the shooting that we do at a very, very well-regulated place, Cherry Ridge, why would we not want to have reasonable gun control laws? Why wouldn't we want reasonable gun safety legislation? And above all, why would we not want to support a red flag law which protects the gun owner, his neighbor, and everyone else in the community? I am not an outsider coming into a community and giving you some information trying to make this a Second Amendment city. I'm one of you. Since 1976, I have protected your children as a teacher, as a coach. And now, with these red flag laws, we need to protect everyone in this town. And so, I know Councilman Shortway said that this is not on the agenda, but it could come up very soon. So I figured, let me come tonight and maybe head it off at the pass. I also emailed the mayor, emailed the council president, and let them know that I was coming to speak against this Second Amendment sanctuary city concept that's going around in Sussex County. One last point. It can happen anywhere. It can. And if we remember the pizza murderer over in Hardyston, he was enrolled in Vernon Township High School, and he was in my class. He was in my class. And so, folks, when we have a law like the red flag law that can protect you, me, you, everyone in this room, we should support it. The Second Amendment cities do not support reasonable measures to protect its citizens. They're more concerned about protecting their guns. Okay? So, in closing, should a resolution like this come up in town, to consider Vernon as a Second Amendment sanctuary city, you will see me again at this meeting. You will see me again at the Acme. You will see me again at the McAfee Post Office, because we need to convince the citizens of this community that Second Amendment sanctuary cities are not what we want in Vernon. We want a safe city. We want a city where our children can go in the woods, can hunt, can shoot at Cherry Ridge, all with safety with their guns. And so I ask the council, please, never consider this. It sends a bad message, because it says to other communities and to our children and to our students, we're not enforcing the laws. We're not going to enforce red flag laws. We're not going to look for a way out of this terrible situation that we're in with gun control. You know, every time there's a tragedy, we're all hyped up about it, all hyped up. And as soon as the Congress wants to do something, the NRA picks up the phone, makes their phone calls, and we never hear about it again. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mayor, please reject any notion of making Vernon a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Thank you very much.
I know it's late. It's been a long meeting. I'm sorry. Really wanted to do this earlier. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sally Rinker, and I speak tonight as the president of the Vernon Taxpayers Association. And I'd like to address Council President Shortway. When you and I served together back in 2010 and 11, I as mayor and you as deputy mayor, we undoubtedly presided over a governing body that was more transparent and respectful to the public than I have seen in the last 10 years. I'm appealing to you as the new council president to restore the transparency we once had. Our attorney then, John Urson, gave us good advice. And that advice was, if it is public information, give it to them. Be transparent. And the result of that guidance was less Oprahs and no lawsuits. We never cut people off from speaking because of a time limit. You probably remember how long some of those meetings did go. And we even answered questions when we could. We were respectful to the public, and there were times public comments were not kind to us. But they were still thanked for their comments and were never verbally assaulted with snide and insulting remarks as they returned to their seats. On January 24th, 2020, the members of the Vernon Taxpayers Association discussed matters of concern to be addressed by Vernon's current administration. The following attached document contains a list of requests which will both establish and restore transparency and accountability to our government for the residents and taxpayers of Vernon. The list of requests include abiding by state statutes, utilizing best practices, and fostering a more respectful and improved working relationship between elected officials, residents, and taxpayers. The Vernon Taxpayers Association, on behalf of all taxpayers who value transparency and accountability in our government, respectfully submits this document for your consideration and implementation. And I'd like to go through it briefly, if I may. First and foremost, restore the public speaking opportunities for members of the public at town council meetings in the first public session to the 5-minute time frame on any issue. Offer a 3-minute time frame for any member of the public to speak at the end of the meetings to address any issue. The rationale to this is, when the 5-minute time slot at the beginning of the meetings was reduced to 3 minutes and restricted to agenda items only, as we've seen tonight, it created a hardship for the public due to the fact that some may not be able to sit through the entire meeting, and tonight is one of those examples. where the disabled or the work fatigued cannot address their issue, or maybe don't want to wait long enough to have that chance. The shortened time frame from 5 minutes down to 3 minutes was said to allow the council to get council business done. Council business is public business. And a quick review of 6 months of council meetings at that time showed that the total time public speaking took up at council meetings was 12 minutes on the average. Hardly an inconvenience for the council. Also, more often than not, the 3 minutes is exceeded because 3 minutes is not enough time to address many issues. And it has been a hard one to adhere to on all sides. Right. Resolutions, it was touched upon tonight by Mr. McClackery, must include complete factual information, such as attached contract copies, salaries and terms, facts and figures, etc. The rationale, detailed information minimizes and prevents unnecessary Open Public Records Act requests for the public to obtain public information. Answering questions at council meetings. We used to do it, and it wasn't such a bad thing. I think it showed respect for the public and for the time they take to come here. And it's the public's right to ask questions and be answered whenever possible. The rationale, residents and taxpayers have entrusted you with decisions pertaining to their money and quality of life. It is disrespectful to not respond to a question if the answer is known. If the answer is not known, the response needs to be one of assurance that the question will be answered when the information is known. This would improve public trust, a necessary component between public servants and the public. Enacting ordinances. They are laws by which the public must honor and follow, and need to be carefully vetted out before drafting and placing on the agenda for a vote. Full text must accompany the ordinance upon introduction, as has been done, and the first reading and the entire process must follow the applicable statute for ordinances, NJSA 40:41A-101. The rationale to this is, ordinances lose significance and clarity when drafted on the fly or are voted on when incomplete and inconsistent. It creates confusion when they are repeatedly tabled due to being introduced prematurely. Workshops. Thank you for the workshop offer tonight. They are necessary for all complicated and multifaceted issues. Public awareness and public input should be welcomed and valued, as well as the input from elected officials. The rationale is workshops foster public trust. Complicated issues may greatly affect taxpayers and residents. Workshops help to include all available knowledge for better outcomes. They will help to minimize poorly written and incomplete ordinances, as well as excess legal fees. Upcoming issues such as the short-term rental ordinance and investigation into dissolving Vernon's Municipal Utility Authority definitely call for workshops. So again, thank you for the one on the B&B. Meeting minutes of all committees, commissions, and boards should be keeping minutes of their meetings. Commissions are required by state statute to do so and post them regularly on the township website. All other committees and boards, especially the ones who spend taxpayers' dollars, should be keeping minutes of their meetings and posting them on the township website as well. Following best practices. All committees, commissions, and boards should give public reports of their progress and expenditures at council meetings, quarterly or at least biannually, and I consider biannually twice a year. Okay. Rationale. There should always be public accounting of spending public's money. The public and elected officials have the right to know what goals these groups are working on and what they are accomplishing. This also reduces the requests for information by way of Oprah. Restore voting on the township's bills. At the council meetings, a process which has been done by every municipality in Sussex County, the Freeholder Board, our own Land Use Board, the MUA, and every government entity that disperses taxpayers' money to pay bills. The rationale: the bills list would be included on the agenda for the public to review prior to the meetings. The council would identify and discuss items in the public forum, and the taxpayer has every right to see where their money is being spent. It is legal, Mr. Zelinski, and it is, at the very least, best practices, and supported by law according to NJSA 40:69A-130, titled Disbursement of Municipal Funds. Posting the council meeting agenda on the website more than 48 hours before the council meeting would be a courtesy to the public. Though the law only requires a 48-hour notice, our agendas are posted at 5 p.m. on Friday before the Monday meeting. Our code calls for all agenda items to be submitted for inclusion on the agenda by noon on Tuesday. Therefore, the agenda may be posted earlier than Friday, 5 p.m. for public convenience. Even one day sooner, Thursday, would be helpful. The rationale to this is the public has from 5 p.m. on Friday night, to Monday night to research or inquire about any agenda items which will be addressed at the Monday night meeting. When business closes Friday at 5 p.m., it leaves only Monday during the day for any inquiries or research to any government agencies or businesses or so forth. Council meetings posted on the township website is a practice that has taken place for the past several years. The recorded meetings have not been posted since October 17, 2019. This is a public convenience for those who cannot come to the meetings but are interested in them. Council meetings should continue to be posted regularly and timely, so I'm hoping that is restored. Thanks. Rationale: public access to information fosters awareness and increases government trust when information is made available. And I have in big, giant, bold letters, public address system. It was brought up tonight, and I have to tell you, I sit kind of up front, and I think my hearing is still normal, and I have a difficult time myself. So it's got to be fixed. It's been years of complaints. We need to upgrade whatever it takes in this courtroom. It should be able to be accomplished when the public meetings are held. Residents, taxpayers, and attendees of these meetings cannot hear the business that is being conducted on pertinent information of an issue being discussed. It is frustrating and annoying. But most of all, it is disrespectful to those who take the time to attend meetings, who have continually complained about this problem and find it doesn't get rectified. It once again compromises public trust, and it is an easy and necessary fix. I will submit this to the clerk. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
R.J. Bermudez, Vernon. The gentleman before, I agreed with him on one point. We shouldn't have to talk about a 2A sanctuary. Our current administration is just gutting our rights that you all took an oath to uphold. So I come to you asking to uphold that oath. That's all I'm asking for. I had a lot more in my head, but I'm going to keep this short and sweet because there are other people that want to talk. I've been going town to town and county to county helping these Second Amendment sanctuaries get passed. As far as red flag laws, I don't think anyone actually knows what they are, but they're not in the interest of public safety. It's gutting due process. If you want, I can sit down with all of you, and I'll bring a turkey baster too. It's gutting due process, and it's making law-abiding people like myself and others in this room criminals overnight. And it's basically the don't make your neighbor mad law, right? There's no due process. There's no investigation. There's none of that. And what the 2A resolutions basically do is say it's not about concealed carry or open carry or anything like that. It's just to say enough is enough. We recognize our constitutionally protected God-given rights. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anthony Rossi, and I am an NRA member. Vernon is known throughout New Jersey for having the largest gun range in New Jersey, with tens of thousands of gun owners bringing their guns through this town each year without incident. It's not the law-abiding resident. Excuse me, I'm reading this off my phone here. I typed this down. It's not the law-abiding citizen. We all know it's the criminals. Don't follow the laws. We live in a peaceful town. However, we also been seeing a huge outbreak in heroin use, and we all may know someone that has been directly or indirectly affected by this outbreak in heroin. Today it's heroin, tomorrow it'll be something else, and it doesn't seem to slow down. And with that addiction comes crime, which we have been seeing it firsthand in our community, especially in Highland Lakes. Today in Washington, we are no longer seeing bipartisan support on anything. Today, it's all about pushing agendas regardless of putting the American people's safety and well-being first. This has also trickled down to the state level, and first pushing bail reform and then opening the state up to sanctuary for illegal immigrants, all while passing a handful of gun laws that do not protect its citizens, but yet puts more power into the criminals' hands. This has gone too far, and we are seeing more and more people leave the state because of the actions in Trenton. And that will cost us all money in the end. As of today, we have over 500 signatures in Vernon right now petitioning for a 2A sanctuary resolution. We must end partisan agendas that spite the other party, which is why we must stay true to our Constitution. A famous quote we should always note: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it down to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. Ronald Reagan. Mr. Mayor, you ran a campaign on a nonpartisan office. This will be your test. Mr. Shortway, I believe you've received several emails from people regarding the 2A sanctuary. You stated that you were doing, quote, you were researching with due diligence. It's been about a month. We haven't heard anything. I would appreciate if you can respond. That'd be great. I don't know if you can comment on your findings, but if not, I will ask that this 2A sanctuary be added to the next agenda for the next meeting, and I ask that you pass for a 2A Second Amendment resolution. Thank you.
Hello, Louis Blaine, Eckes Court, one more time. 2 points. One, to clear up the confusion, biannual is every 2 years. Semi-annual is twice a year, okay? I've heard it too many different ways today. Okay, so bi means two, like a bipod on a gun. Okay, semicircle is a half a circle, so it's twice a year, all right? Secondly, in terms of the Second Amendment, I am a gun owner. I have worked with and in and for the Air Force for most of my life, and I'm 74. If I am a registered, law-abiding gun owner on a military base, my guns are locked up in the post armory. I never get to see them. The military does not allow people to privately own guns. Nobody in the Second Amendment movement says a peep about it because they know that's constitutional. I don't see why the people in Vernon, who have a lot more freedom than that, are so worried about it. I've been with the military. I have not seen anybody talking about taking away anybody's guns. I hear a lot of people yelling about it, but I have not seen anything come out from any political party, centrist political party, there's lunatics on both sides, thank you, saying that they're taking away anybody's guns or anybody's right to guns. The red flag laws, are not well written. They're well intended, they're not well written. That doesn't mean there should not be some trip mechanism for keeping people who are mentally ill or emotional away from their guns. Okay. Thank you very much.
Come on up. We're going
You all
to be
know me
friends
by now.
tonight.
Yeah. Mike Maniscalco, Highland Lakes, New Jersey. I'd like to address a couple of things real quick that I heard on the Second Amendment / sanctuary / gun ownership deal. Law-abiding gun owner right here, never an issue, proud, lifetime NRA member since I'm 24, now I'm 53, so I have a long relationship with the NRA. I've heard the word reasonable stressed very loudly, stated and overstated. Reasonable, as the lawyers will attest to, is an opinion. What is reasonable to you is not reasonable to me, is not reasonable to the lady over there or the lady over there. That's reasonable. A reasonable statement on my behalf, I will say. Lastly, I also heard, again stated and overstated, that we're more concerned, or law-abiding gun owners are more concerned with protecting their guns. That couldn't be more incorrect if I tried to make something up. The correct way to say that is we are concerned with protecting our rights that we were born with, our constitutional rights as Americans. That's all I have.
Thank you.
My name is Krista Gary, and I'm just up here to say I agree 100% with Sally Rinker, and I hope you consider all of her suggestions tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Krista. Mr. McClackery, come on up.
One more time, Eric.
It's good to see you.
McClackery, Thomas. You said before that the mayor is part of the government, and he is. The way that I see it in this form of government, and you can correct me if you're wrong, but this is the way I see it. The mayor's position is the executive branch, and the council is the legislative branch. So you're Congress, and he's the president. Now, he can come out and say whatever he wants. The mayor, not you personally, sir, but the mayor can come out and say whatever they want. But you guys have to approve the expenditures, that's all. That's your big thing, is the budget and any legislation like more regulations. That's you guys. Having said that, I'll skip. I'm back on to the slaves again. Okay, so I came up last meeting and I talked about slaves. I might have been kind of loud. I didn't have all my government-issued hearing aids in, which, you know, don't do a heck of a lot. But anyhow, there's 3 slave cemeteries in the township. We know that one is on or close to Canal Road and Price's Switch Road. We know one is on Maple Grange and 94 on the Van Dockenberg property. That one's never going to be disturbed because it's on state property. We know where it is, but I don't think it's been published, the exact position, because I don't want anybody messing around with it. And the third one is Barrett Road. Barrett Road comes from, in 1760, McCamley moves into town, which at that point was Warwick. He thought he was in New York. He owned what is now Borderlands Farm, plus a bunch of other land. He had a couple of mills that were in New Milford, and he owned a bunch of slaves. That had a village on Barrett Road, which is the new tree farm. That village also had a church and a cemetery. Now, McCamley, he sells his property to Wheeling. He sold the mills to Wheeling, which is where the slaves come in. We know the slaves were still there in believe it was 89, because Wheeling then sells some of the slave, so we know they were there. But my point in all of this is this.
Excuse me. Can we please, in the audience, not talk? A lot of people have had trouble hearing tonight. Please. Thank you. Tom, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but people
That's
need to
okay,
hear
because
what
I
you're
didn't hear what
saying.
you said.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. But anyhow, so I think it's the town's history. And at some point, you got to stick some signage out there. At least do that. If not, locate the exact cemetery location, which, as I pointed out the last time, you could probably do through aerial photography, which goes back to the 50s and the 40s. And the stuff will still be there at that point. The stuff being the tombstones. But I think you should put out the signage. I know it's not a nice history. I know we may not like it. But we were a slave state. And we have these 3 designated slave cemeteries. There's other burials throughout the township. We don't know where they are. But these 3 should be recognized, and there should be some signage put out there. That's me. Thank you, and
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rich Hederick. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, Vice President of the Skylands Tea Party. Before I start, I just want to say something. The gentleman who was in the Air Force, thank him for his service, where he said that the bases do not allow firearms. Just want to mention one thing. It's Fort Hood. If I'm not mistaken, that is where the people brought on guns, and a couple of the military people were killed. Okay. So, everybody here, they will drive here tonight? Everybody drive, right? Okay. You ever notice there's a thing called a speedometer? You ever see what it goes up to? Most cars, economy cars, go 120. If you got a Beamer, maybe 140. Sports cars, 160, 180. Corvettes go to 200. How many of you guys drive around 200 miles an hour? Nobody, right? You have a car that's capable of it, right?
Sir, please address the council. We want to hear your comments. They'll hear you,
Well,
okay?
you guys can hear me because of this.
Well,
I figured they can't,
It's
so I'm trying to...
council comments to us, please.
Okay, can you guys
I want to
hear me?
hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I'm sure nobody commutes at 120 miles an hour. The car can do it. Every once in a while, we read something about some idiot, I'll call it that way, on Route 80, goes flying at 100 plus miles an hour, hits a family and kills them. Now, do we go and arrest the car? No, we arrest the guy. Isn't there laws already against that? I think there's homicide laws that are involved in a vehicular homicide. But again, nobody arrests the car. Yet we all drive these cars, and we drive them because we're law-abiding citizens. We drive them legally. Now, how many people here own a firearm? When's the last time your firearm killed somebody? No. Why not? Because we're law-abiding citizens. But we sure read in the paper where most of the time it's, there's a bad guy with a gun, and he kills somebody. Now, last I checked, there's murder laws. We don't need, we have people that come out then and say, well, we have to have more gun laws. Well, the gun laws only hurt us, the people that don't use our guns for violence. Because the bad guys, they don't pay attention to that. So really, we already have laws for the crimes that are committed. Problem is we just don't do a really good job of it. So what we do is we go after the firearms to make everybody feel good that we're doing something. But what happens is we get magazine restrictions, we got firearms restrictions. We can't buy scary black guns or any of this other stuff. What that does is only make us less safe because the bad guys still have all of that. So the amendment, I think, that they're looking for, to the resolution that we're looking to pass, quite frankly, it doesn't mention, as far as I know, sanctuary, because in the early stages of that, it does give law-abiding citizens the wrong idea that they can just go ahead and carry it and break the law. We don't want to make felons out of law-abiding citizens. Anyway, that is just a resolution that just says, look, we support law-abiding firearms owners. A lot of these laws do not affect the criminal, they only affect the law-abiding people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dunlop?
I always watch these at home. Steve Dunlop again. I always watch these meetings at home. I don't always come. I do get frustrated sometimes when I can't hear. Part of it could be a Fleetwood Mac concert in Mobile, Alabama in 1975. My ears did ring for a couple of days after that. But it is frustrating to sit out here and know that there's microphones that aren't being used. I often see the microphones quite a ways away from the speaker. The closer you get to the microphone, I don't even know if this one's on, the better it works. And there must be a volume switch on the speakers, but it is very frustrating. I've been very impressed with the way this meeting's been conducted tonight. It's different than some of the past ones that I've attended. I know there has to be restrictions, but sometimes there needs to be flexibility, and I've seen that flexibility tonight, and I, for one, appreciate it. When we vote for town council members, we vote on them based on the information that we have at hand. But we also realize that after we vote for them, that we don't just walk away and say, well, it's their town, they run it the way they want. You guys represent us, and you really do need to listen to us. There's been times when Sally has spoken, and I've like, oh my God, here we go again. Because sometimes it is repetitious, and I think sometimes it's repetitious because people aren't listening. Mrs. Rinker obviously put a lot of time and effort into her presentation tonight. I hope that every board member gets a copy of it, and I hope they will read it and they will think about it, because it should be a two-way street. We're in this together. Sometimes it's been nasty with the way these meetings have been conducted, and one person, if they're liked, can go 10 minutes. Someone, if they're not liked, 3 minutes, back to your seat. Shouldn't be like that. There has to be order. There has to be some control. There shouldn't be shouting out. There shouldn't be the dialogue. In fact, I saw it tonight from a council member that was in the past totally against it. Depends on whose who ox is being gored, I guess. But I would ask that you do think about what Mrs. Rinker said tonight, because it made perfectly good sense to me, and I hope she does make copies of it available to you. On the gun issue, being a former policeman, you know, in most instances it's a good guy with a gun that stops a bad guy with a gun, and the police aren't always available. Too many times the police are just there to hang up yellow tape and to take pictures, and to make a statement to the press to let them know what happened. One of the Democratic candidates for president last week was upset about what happened in the church in Texas, saying they should have dialed 911. Well, if you talk to the individual that stopped the incident, it was 6 seconds from the time the man drew the gun till he was dead. We live in a rural community. If I call the police, it's probably going to be at least 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes before they get to my door. By then, if 1 or 2 people come through my door with a gun, the policeman's job is going to be there to take pictures and to put up yellow tape. So I know the state that I live in. When I turned 16 years old, my dad gave me a firearm, a handgun, to carry in my car. What a wild concept that was. But that was in Florida. I knew coming to New Jersey, I had to leave all my guns at home. All my guns are at my mom's house in Florida, because I know that they're illegal here. It's not a very good way to have to live. I know a sanctuary town policy is not going to change the state laws. We're probably just going to, pardon my English, piss off the governor even more. He already doesn't care much for us up here in Sussex County. But I would just caution people when they start talking about these reasonable gun laws. What's reasonable to one is unconstitutional to others. And we do have a right to keep and bear arms. And I hope that this council doesn't fall into this trap of feeling that they just want to be reasonable with the gun laws. But I thank you for your time. I know I've had my 3 minutes, and I wish you guys all a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Chloe?
Good evening. I just want to Zoe Heath, Highland Lakes. I just want to preface this with that it's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I did not think this was going to go till 10 o'clock because these meetings normally don't. But I just had a question and then a statement. Do we know the legalities of council people conference calling into a public meeting?
Yes.
Go ahead, you may.
We will address that actually at council comments. I'll address that.
Oh, awesome, thank you. And then I just wanted to comment on the Second Amendment resolution, which was mentioned previously. It's something that is almost a trend throughout the rest of the county, and as someone who lives in this town and actually understands red flag laws, because I've Googled it just even the slightest bit, it's unnecessary. It's red flag laws are actually part of what keeps people safe. It's not just, you can't just call up and be like, hey, I don't like this person, let me take away their guns. It's has to go through a judge. Council President Shortway, you were a police officer, you understand domestic violence issues, you've seen these kinds of things, and I'm sure you understand that some people's lives would have been saved if they didn't have a weapon. So I know this council and the mayor they listen to their constituency and they take every bit of someone's opinion or concern into account when they're drafting a proclamation or a resolution. So I just hope that you'll do the right thing once again. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Seeing no more members of the public wishing to come forward, may I have a motion to close the meeting to public comments?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Mayor, would you like to give a report, sir?
Yes. The sound system. I'm not so sure what we can do about it, but it's going to be something that I'm going to look into because I don't sit here and assume that the previous mayor and council hadn't heard some of the complaints or done anything. So I'm not going to sit here and say they didn't do anything, but I'm going to fix it. But I am going to look into that because when I was sitting out there, I couldn't hear either. And now I do understand that, I have some hearing issues. I don't wear hearing aid, but I got some hearing issues. But we just should be able to hear better. So I'm going to look at that and see what we can do. And I want the public to know that. I appreciate the comments that one citizen made about the meetings. I commented last week that I thought that the council meeting had been better. That meeting was better, and it was. And that was not my attempt to try to negatively reflect on anybody or any situation that really happened in the past. The meetings were simply better, conducted better. And this has been a very full meeting, and it has been better. And I think that people who watch this on video formats and what have you, they'll see that. And I honestly and truly think that it's going to be better for the town. People are going to get a better image of our town. And when I say meetings better, I don't mean that people shouldn't complain or anything, but just how we conduct ourselves. And they have been better. There has to be order, there has to be control, and there has to be a happy medium on some things. I know that the council president and I, we've talked a little bit about the time limit and everything, and I've heard what people say. Maybe, 5 minutes is 3 minutes is not long enough. I don't know, but I do know we've got to get some kind of control in it. We've even talked about, I know that the council president wants to handle things fair and even-handed. I know that. He's told me that. We talked about getting a timer of some type, something so that someone could see. But we didn't want that to be offensive to anybody or intimidating. But at least if we had something like that, everybody would see that everybody got the same amount of time. I don't know. But we've got to try to find a happy medium. The thing I really want to say, guys, is that we hear you, we're working on it. Let me just go to some prepared statements that I had. I really want people to know that during these first 27 days that I've been mayor, a significant portion of my time has been spent working towards the fulfillment of my commitment to do my own personal inquiry into the long-standing issue of Vernon's sewer system, which is currently managed by an independent agency called the Vernon MUA. The primary objectives of my inquiry are to, number one, to try to determine for my own clarification just how we as a municipality got ourselves into a situation where we spent millions of dollars to purchase a sewage management system that was aimed at helping us to develop a town center and attract new business to our town. And now, almost 7 years later, we find that this sewer system has, not to my knowledge, attracted any significant amount of business to the town, is our town's most expensive asset, and has become a town asset where the largest portion of the expenses are being paid for by a small group of Vernon citizens. In fact, about 1,700, or about 7% of our town's population, most of which live in the Stonehill condominiums. This is neither sustainable, we can't do this forever, or in my humble opinion, neither is it fair or reasonable that this burden should be placed on just 1,700 citizens. The second objective of my inquiry is to explore options that may be available to our town to help us to reduce the cost of operating our sewage management system. And number three, to determine if we as a town could somehow turn this perceived bitter lemon of sewers into what our MUA, into what our council, and what I as mayor would like to see as what I call the sweet lemonade of success of service and a business venture. My personal inquiry, in fact, is ongoing. And during the first 27 days as mayor, I have learned a lot. And I've done this through a detailed personal discussions with 2 of the MUA commissioners, and I plan to have also detailed discussions with the others. I've also learned a lot through several detailed personal discussions with the MUA's executive director, as well as a tour by the executive director of the MUA's physical facility, that is, our sewage systems piped in the ground, the pump stations, and our lift stations. I've learned from reading ordinance number 11-23, which actually formalized the town's purchase of the sewer management system from United Water in 2011, and from researching and reading much of the press and other coverage related to the town's purchase of the sewage management system from United Water. And I'm in the process of scheduling meetings with the MUA's engineer, the MUA's attorney, and the MUA's auditor. Just a few more points. Now, all should know that I started this personal inquiry before Council President Shortway announced his formation of a wastewater feasibility study. I strongly believe that this feasibility study by this committee is needed, and that it will only contribute to the learning that I have gained from my personal efforts. In addition, my personal inquiry will enable me to be more of a contributor to this committee rather than simply a non-contributing bystander. And I want to again to thank Council President Shortway for allowing me to be a part of this council committee, because quite frankly, he did not have to allow me to be a part of it. For I believe that this committee is one more step forward in our collective efforts to move Vernon forward. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Council President and the council.
Thank you. Council comments. Would you like to go first?
Sure. The vacant property ordinance that we have, could the council have a report of who and how much money is owed for people that have not paid? Because I know that there's outstanding, so it'd be interesting to see. And the bills list, I'm just wondering, a judge ruled, actually, when a resident sued, a judge ruled that the bills list did not have to be reviewed or voted on by the council. Can this just be added and ignored? Would a judge have to reverse it? I know, I'm not saying what he did was correct, but the judge did come down with that decision.
That's correct.
So I'm just wondering, I mean, can it just be ignored, or would you have to go back before a judge?
Usually you comply with judicial orders. My recommendation would be that the township comply with judicial orders.
Not to say that it's something that we would entertain or what have you, but I did read about Stillwater introducing their Second Amendment resolution. It seemed to be maybe a little, it gave the appearance that it wasn't so strong, maybe it was a little watered down. So I did actually reach out to the mayor there. I couldn't find it online on their website, but I did ask if we could have a copy of that just to review. So as soon as I get it, I'll forward it. The question about the council members calling in at council, our attorney's request last year, a recommendation, we did change, we did some amendments to our township code in regard to council members calling in for meetings. And it's if I recall correctly, council members can call in up to 2 meetings per year.
2 meetings and only 2 can be on the phone.
And only 2 can be on the phone at once. But if they're voting, they need to stay on the phone the entire time of the meeting. That was the requirement. So what happens now, because both council members hung up before votes were finished, so...
I don't think that it invalidates.
Well,
my own, you're asking me what my view of it is. I'll read you the language.
but I'm just going to say, I don't know that it changes anything, but I just wanted to bring it to the attention that we did specify. You can't just say, I'm going to call in at 7:30 and vote on one issue and hang up. You have to be on for the entire time. So just wanted to kind of clarify that was something that, that I caught with, because it was something we wanted to address to avoid a situation like that. So.
Yes.
And what does it say there?
It says, if a council member attends a meeting via telephone, the council member must be present by the telephone for the entire meeting. That's the language.
So, I mean, it's like I said, but it's a question of if they're hanging up and say there was something. I mean, I made a motion to table, and it failed, but then the council members hung up. Well, one hung up, so, I mean, so it could potentially change a vote by having them, by them not staying on the phone the whole time. One of the other things I just wanted to mention, by the way, no disrespect, Harry, but when you were on the council back then, everything wasn't rosy. So I would not want the public to think that everything was rosy back in 2011 or 2010. I think we went through about 5 or 6 managers. So it was quite contentious. Last thing I wanted to address is the wastewater feasibility committee. I did reach out to the mayor, and I guess the whole thing here is, since we're addressing an issue with the MUA, the members have their meetings, they do their due diligence. As a matter of fact, the MUA did not have a director for 5 months, and the chair, he actually received, all the phone calls. But I just am troubled by the fact that the MUA is not getting to choose the members that are on this committee. The Environmental Commission had a meeting, and Ms. DeStassi volunteered to be on it, but yet the MUA that this actually has to do with, we're not getting the advantage of the members that have been there the longest. We have engineers, we have John Perry was a director of water and sewer. That's what he does for a living, but yet he was not allowed. And again, no disrespect, but members that are on it are actually members that are on the Greenway Committee. Nothing against the Greenway Committee. It's not a violation of OPMA because they're not conducting any business, but, in my opinion, even though you're forming this, the members here are really, besides yourself and me, who here really knows? Who knows really what has been going on with this sewer system for this entire time? Who has followed it the way we have? No one. So, I just feel, even Tom Buckney, he's probably the longest sitting member. I know Ed Seeger volunteered, and he was told that he could be an alternate. So I don't feel that the committee is really being formulated in the proper manner because, again, nothing against you, but some of these members you appointed when you were mayor to the Greenway Committee. So now they're just going on to this. I almost feel like the outcome has already been determined. Not saying that it has, but it's something that needs to be addressed, because I think they have a meeting on the 30th. I think they should be allowed to determine who from their commission, because after all, it's an autonomous board. And, I mean, they should be able to choose. And the one thing that Jack McLaughlin spoke about, water testing, by the way, in that ordinance, if you have the homes or condominiums that are on the public water, you do not need a water test. So if that's determined, I mean, if it's a private home on a well, it does. And I think that might be, one second, let me just go back to my other page. I have so many notes. Oh, one other thing about this committee. Given the I don't know, the magnitude of how this could affect our town, I really believe that these meetings need to be held in public, because.
Thank you.
And the reason is because, you know, there's a lot. I mean, we've been involved, like I said, for the longest time. I was going to meetings when it was formed, when you were on the council. I sat here through all of them, everything that's happened, through the purchase, through this bankruptcy. I went to all of these things, and to just have an isolated group making a decision, and you cannot make this decision just based on the finances. You cannot make the decision based on the fact that, you know, residents in Great Gorge pay their share, because I have a septic. So are they willing to, you know, contribute to my septic? You know, I don't think so. And, you know, the mayor's told me, oh, well, only 7% of the people in Vernon are on the sewer. Okay, you know, but again, there's a lot to take into consideration. If we start to expand, you know, what does that do to our agreement with Mountain Creek? I mean, as it is, that ordinance, you know, nobody in town hall, was ready to jump on it and record that ordinance at the county. You know, and that was the county, that was the ordinance we passed. So if Mountain Creek does not pay us, we would have the lien. We would be able to lien their property. Administration, and it was something I asked, and it did get recorded finally, I think it was on December 19th. But that should have been one of the first things that they were looking at to see that this was happening, because there's only a limited amount of time that you have to record that. It's not, you know, open-ended. So, like I said, I don't know if our attorneys, if our bankruptcy attorneys have been, you know, spoken to, if they've given an opinion yet, or if they're working on opinion. I know I asked if the MUA bankruptcy attorney could weigh in on this. Because, you know, before somebody's, you know, moving forward with plans, we need to know how this will affect us, because, you know, nobody has saved anybody $28 million. We're not saved. We haven't, you know, we received the $918 that they owed us. We received money that they collected last year. That's a far cry from what they owe us. And hopefully it snows so they can continue collecting money, because, you know, the town will start to be in trouble in a year if we don't get our money. So that's all.
Mine's going to be long because the door's been open. First of all, this committee makes no decisions. They will make recommendations. Fury, Carney, and Matt Biagini all worked on the system, so they know the system. They were operators and maintainers. So this is why I'm moving forward, and some of the older members, as far as I'm concerned, failed to do their duties on the MUA. Here's my list of grievances. I'm sorry, it's 3 pages. The wastewater funding gap. The town center did not develop as planned. The 2008 financial crisis presented challenges, but our municipal government failed to cultivate the tourism industry with marketing strategies following the crisis. Elected officials relied on Mountain Creek and did not incorporate our open space or master plan in an effort to develop our new revenues for property tax and sewer rate stabilization. All property taxpayers within the borders and boundaries of Vernon Township are responsible for the debt associated with the sewers, not just the MUA or sewer users. You can read ordinances 11-22 and 23 and see you're all responsible. We are all responsible for $6.8 million of that sewer system. $4 million purchased it, $2.8 was used to operate it. In addition, the revenues to pay for the system were to be derived from charges made to the users of the system. These charges typically consist of usage fees and connection fees. This scheme failed due to the following. Elected officials did not complete water service into the town center. Connection to the system was not made available to all entities in the town center, therefore rendering the build-out projections incorrect. You have people off of Main Street not hooked up to your source. You have Route 94 here on the east side not hooked up to your source. They failed to put in the pipes. Elected officials did not aggressively market our community as a destination, recreation, right? That's what we have. That's what we're about. We heard that tonight from many people over the STRs. Mountain Creek did not develop as promised. The 2012 financial agreement waived all connection fees associated with Mountain Creek. Schooma's treatment plant was overbuilt by an estimated 80,000 gallons to satisfy claims by private entities, which people don't want to talk about that. My grievances are as follows. The Vernon Township MUA lacks policy setting an efficient and effective organizational structure related to employee tasks and has no set asset management plan. This has resulted in the following. The MUA failed to inform the public and governing body of the Marauder's administration's failure to execute the 2012 sewer agreement pertaining to Pump House 2. My administration discovered a secret agreement between former Mayor Marotta and developer and former Mountain Creek owner Andrew Mulvihill regarding replacement of the Sand Hill Pump House. It was delayed by an agreement never approved by the council. Union issues with collective bargaining agreements because our DPW is doing the work, grievances due to civil service work titles, lack of formal organizational structure concerning employee tasks, hazardous work environment, lack of security by failing to identify those parties who have access to our facilities, resulting in sabotage and theft of the MUA generator. Financial responsibilities by failure to properly invoice and receive funds in a timely manner from common management for services performed and to inform our CFO regarding these matters. The MUA is making only minimum debt payments to ensure operational revenue to keep the authority afloat. The MUA has failed to aggressively pay down the bond anticipatory notes associated with Ordinances 11-22 and Ordinances 11-23 by only making annual minimum payments. In 2023, $9 million of bans will have to go out for bonding. $6.8 million is related to the sewers. But don't forget, the Skooma bonds jumped from $1 million to $1.5 million. We all are on the hook for this. And not should just be the 1,400 or 1,700, I guess, users it is. I thought it was 1,440. Expenditures without appropriations, fraudulent price quotes, failure to safeguard employee safety resulting in an injury at the Sand Hill Pump House. MUA was noticed of these hazards in 2012 by its operator and engineer, but failed to rectify these situations or demand replacement of the pump house as was required by agreements. The failure to know lift stations were owned by the township and resulted in $12,695 in legal costs. We only discovered this when we looked at the application to buy it, that the engineer and the township attorney, who was the MUA attorney at the time, signed off on the application that we owned the lift stations. We wasted almost $13,000. Why couldn't the MUA tell me we own the lift stations? Unreasonable lawsuits against the VFW for one EDU. It cost them $30,000. The level of bureaucracy is not needed. There's a duplication of professional services. And there are perceived conflict of interest, which I will go through another time, and those allegations were brought up in 2011 and 2012. So what have we done so far to rectify this? We expanded the town center designation. We changed the town center to include breweries and wineries. People say, let's have retail stores. Amazon is killing the retail market. You need touch businesses. Eat, drink, medical facilities. Now, Amazon, I know, can deliver sandwiches to your door, but it's not the same thing as going out to eat. This is where we have to focus. We sold municipal properties not needed for public use. It generated almost $300,000 in revenue, but it's putting properties back on the tax rolls. The Board of Ed followed suit and sold 2 of their properties located in the town center. We adopted a vacant building ordinance not only for properties in the town center, but throughout our community. The ordinance has generated over $300,000 in the last 2 years. But more importantly, that was a result. I didn't see that coming. I knew there was some money, but it's reducing blight. When I ran for mayor in 2015, when I got elected in 2016, I could not believe the blight I saw by all these homes being foreclosed. They now are being fixed and they're being sold. Also, another benefit of that is, and this came from Dan Story, in his lake community, because of the houses being fixed and being sold, they collected in 1 year $66,000 in back dues. I don't even pretend to know what Highland Lakes has collected, and they're a lot bigger. So that was another unforeseen consequence, but it's a good one because it's helping our qualified lake communities out. Area need redevelopment study, and now we're moving into a plan. Water feasibility we did, economic development study. We brought water service to Church Street and the municipal complex. The municipal building, believe it or not, was paying for EDUs, but we weren't even hooked up to the sewer system. I only discovered this when I looked out my window by chance and see our septic system being emptied. So we forced other people to hook up. How come we didn't hook up? I'll tell you why, because it was $60,000 to do, but it was the right thing to do to help the people and stabilize these rates. Volunteers blazed the future town center trail with a $2,000 grant. I've seen some ridiculous numbers of hundreds of thousands of dollars, $2,000. We did it with our backs, machetes, and that's how we did it. We have 9 new businesses in the town center. And the agreement with Mountain Creek based on, and there are other, I know, parts of the agreement, was based on a 7% recreation fee that follows the land on it. So the MUA's operations have decreased recently, including the director who said, you don't need to be here. It's just taking the system, the wastewater, pumping it down and bringing it back up. I think right now, the best thing this MUA has done is hire Matt Biagini. He knows the system. He has like 36 years in the water service. And perhaps now with the commissioners we have, maybe we don't have to dissolve it. But we have to see if there's other things we can do to protect the town and the rate users who wants to see in 2023 if those rates have to go up to $2,000 in EDU. None of us do. We're in this together, and we need to find a solution. So that's why I proposed the committee to start looking at it. That was my say on that. This other thing is more troubling. I've discussed this with the mayor. I've made him known about this. Before I go on, though, Mayor, it may be a good idea to have the HPC look at these slave cemeteries and some of the other cemeteries and have them document it and maybe do a project on this.
I will.
You know, I think that's what they're there for. This would be a great thing. The administration can't do it. The council can't do it. But we have a historical preservation. Let's give them a task to do. And, again, it's under your authority. It's just something that perhaps you would consider.
And that list I gave you, that came out of a book that Ron DuPont wrote.
And he's excellent. If you know Ron, I mean, he knows the whole history of this town. He's a fascinating person.
Well, that's exactly what they are there for. I did slightly mention that to someone on the historical commission, but I will. I'll do it a little bit more direct and see if they can look at that.
Thank you. As far as the Second Amendment, before I go to what's really disturbing, I'm going to take due diligence before I propose anything, but I would first ask the council, and it won't be the next meeting. You saw it tonight, because you've sat here for how many hours? We have a lot of things going on. But we'll use the due diligence. The Second Amendment, I am a gun owner. I was one of those people, I had my 410 shotgun, I still have it, when I was 10 years old, and that was 53 years ago. And I believe if I want to buy a AR-15 with a 15 mag, I can buy that. I've never been convicted of a crime. I've never been charged of a crime. But on the other side of it, what I've seen like some of these communities have done, it's the accessories they're allowing. There's no need for them. And where I'm really insensitive to it is death by suicide. Because perhaps that person owned a gun, had telltale signs they were in distress, and then guess who got the call to go look at what was left and got to sit with that body till the ME came. and I've also done the crimes with it. So I'm very sensitive to it. I appreciate the Second Amendment like I do the First Amendment and the whole Bill of Rights. But I'm going to be very careful with it. And I would invite the council, as when we put it up, as an item for discussion, because it's that important. And we've all taken an oath up here to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of New Jersey. So I see it from both ends. But I am really frightened how some firearms make their way in to some people's hands. And I know that's not all what it is about. But this is a very complex issue that the government, for years, our federal government and state, have not come to terms with. So that's why we're doing due diligence with it. And I'm not going to be rushed just to do it. I am going to take my time and do it the right way. So now that something very distresses me, and like I said to the mayor, I let him know ahead of time. Sean Mazur, and I don't know how you pronounce his name, is a resident of Neptune, New Jersey, who through an LLC owns property in Vernon, received an appointment to the Historical Preservation Commission this year. Within 26 hours following the mayor's statement for harmony, which I firmly believe in, Mazur messaged Councilwoman Weller, who unfortunately is not here tonight, alleging that I was a crook and I was taking kickbacks. In addition, his messages to Councilwoman Weller reads as follows. Like I said way back, distance yourself from Harry. I'm not going to say it, but I am going to spell it. F-U-C-K-I-N-G, good. This is 26 hours after the mayor said we're going to work together. Mazur then describes the council as useless and ignorant. Now, there's freedom of expression, but he's now part of the government team. And if he wants to express it, he should go talk to the mayor about it. Mazur's actions and personal attacks are contrary to the mayor's objectives stated on January 1st and what the mayor ran on. And you can see we are making every attempt, and I think we're successful with working together right now. Do we agree on everything? No, but we're going to make every attempt to find consensus so we work for the people, including you that have sat out here for 3.5 hours. Therefore, because of his appointment, I went calling for his resignation based on those facts, contrary to the mayor. Thank you. If you wish to say something, Mayor, in regards to it, because I mentioned you several times.
And I won't be long, but I think this is important. I was aware that the matter that the council president has just addressed was a matter, quite frankly, that weighed heavily on his mind. And he expressed this to me. And I have prepared some very brief comments on this matter that I would like to share with the public, both those who are here and those who may watch this meeting on some video format. You know, anyone who listened to or believed me during my recent election campaign, or who heard or read my comments on the day that I was sworn in as mayor, just 26 days ago, should not at all be surprised at my response to this matter just brought up by Council President Shortway. Shouldn't be surprised at all. I've been absolutely consistent. On the day that I was sworn in as mayor, I confirmed to those who thought that they could trust and believe me when I repeatedly said on the campaign trail that if they gave me their vote of confidence to be their next mayor, that I would do everything that I could to bring our town together and to move our town forward. I confirmed to them on that day that they were right to believe and to trust what I said. I also acknowledge the fact that one of the major challenges that we faced in bringing our town together and moving our town forward were the various political, the various social, and personality-based factions that actively and aggressively operate in our town, both in person and unfortunately on social media. Some of these comments that the mayor mentioned are social media posts. I looked at some of those. Some of them are really awful, and some of the language is not at all pretty. I additionally made it clear to all individuals and factions, including those who may have supported me, that I would use my personal experience as mayor to make up my own mind about the content of the character and the quality of the work of each individual and organization that I interacted with. even being aware of some of the aggressive and sometimes mean-spirited and distasteful language that some frequently use on Facebook, I got to admit to you that I'm surprised at the language used in these public emails that the council person showed me. Emails that were sent to one of our council women, our council person, by an individual who I appointed to the Historical Preservation Committee because he was a trained architect. Quite frankly, I had people telling me not to appoint some people to committees, but I told them the same thing that I told you, that I'm telling you now. They might have had issues with those people, but I didn't. And I don't believe in prejudging people. All my life, I've asked people not to prejudge me. And I've tried to give people a chance. But I'm disappointed. My personal experience since being elected as mayor includes working close with Mr. Shortway for almost 2 months, even before I was sworn in as mayor. And during that time, he gave me free range to talk and meet with anyone in the municipal center. And at his invitation, I sat in on all of the initial budget discussions that he, the town business manager, and the town's chief financial officer had with each of the department heads. He gave me unlimited approval to use his office to have private meetings with any current or prospective new professionals that I was considering selecting, appointing to positions where they would provide services to the town. And he and town manager Chuck Volker even kept me in the loop on various town matters, even though I had not yet been sworn in as mayor. Now that's a good thing, guys. Most elected officials don't get that kind of treatment. And most administrations don't work like that. Remember, Mr. Shortway supported an individual who ran against me. But once the election was over, it was over. It was over. And while I can't quite say that Council President Shortway and I have the exact same views on every issue, in fact, I can tell you we don't. I can say that during these first 27 days that I've been mayor, he's been a professional, dedicated public servant. And that's the truth. I want the public to know that I understand that the same collective group of voters that elected me also elected President Shortway, as well as other members of the council. And I want them to rest assured. Hear me now. I want them to rest assured that no matter what the chatter on Facebook will say, no matter what it will say, we will continue to work together for the people of Vernon, just as they expect us to. We're going to move forward. This stuff is not going to stop us from moving forward. Because the people in this last election saw some hope. They wanted this crap to stop. They really did. And it's going to stop. People can say whatever they want to on Facebook. They can say whatever they want to at these meetings. But we're going to come in here and do the business of the public. And we're going to move things forward. Thank you, Mr. Shortway.
Hey, Mayor, thank you for your kind words. Just in closing, I emphatically deny those allegations. They threw a number around like $600,000. I never took a dime. And I challenge Mr. Mazur, if he believes that I'm the crook that he writes about, then you should go to the Vernon Police or go to the Sussex County Prosecutor or go to the Attorney General's office. I welcome the investigation. And let's see what you find, because it'll be nothing. Nothing. I emphatically deny these allegations. Thank you. And thank you for being patient tonight. May I have a motion? Close this meeting. I'm sorry, John.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I was all heated up.
No, I couldn't tell. My comment is to the mayor and the business administrator. I've been approached from emergency services where maybe a half dozen or so times this year they've requested plowing and sanding to calls that sometimes are on private roads. I don't know whether it's coming from the DPW. I don't know if it's coming from dispatch. That's private. We can't do it. I think we owe it to the volunteers to make sure the roads are safe, whether it's a private road or not, And I think a load of sand on a truck is worth a hell of a lot more than their safety and our equipment. So I wish just to, whether it's dispatch, whether it's DPW, whatever, if a request is made by emergency services to take care of it. I can remember when we've plowed all the way to a hospital for them. So just please look into that.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
We assured them last year that that would be done.
Well, there's been 4 or 5 times this year where, again, it's been...
Please give me the instances in which that happened, so...
I do not.
Okay, thank you. I'll look into it.
Okay, thank you.
And John, I want to apologize for speaking out of turn and not giving you the opportunity.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
I got my 3 minutes, I'm good. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Nobody opposed.
Appreciate it.
Last year.